My name is Sabine Rowe, 25 years old. I clock in before the city yawns, the back door of Romano's sucking me into the hum of refrigerators and the metallic breath of dishwashers. The kitchen sounds like survival. Hissing pans, knives kissing boards, the dull bass of a walk-in door thudding shut. I used to tell myself that rhythm was a kind of music, that if I kept time long enough, some conductor would finally see me. Instead, I became the metronome no one notices. 6 years here, counting from a 1-year program at the community college, because real school wasn't for me, or so everyone said with a shrug they mistook for kindness. I started on the dish pit, then pantry, then grill, and now I'm the person who fills in gaps no one else wants. 2 shifts most days, 10 to 2, 5 to 11, later on weekends when the line gets slammed and time drips slow as demi-glace. I own 3 pairs of black pants and a twin bed that makes my feet hang off the edge. I do not own days off so much as borrow them. At home, my money is not mine. It moves through me like current, in through payroll, out through mortgage, tuition, books, laundry, repairs that somehow always present themselves when my check hits. My parents don't say thank you because we don't call this support. We call it family. When I was 18, my mother said it like a recipe card, creased and sacred. Sabine, you're a hard worker, and your sister is the scholar. We all do what we're best at. I heard faith. Later I learned it was redistribution. My sister Jessica is 20, halfway through college in the next state. She comes home in bursts, holidays, long weekends, trailing laughter and friends who marvel at our cozy house and the pictures on the mantel that suggest we were always smiling. She tells stories about professors who stop her in halls to praise her clarity, and I try to remember the last time someone asked me what I'm good at besides picking up extra shifts. When she needs spending money, she doesn't ask me directly anymore. She just says, "Mom?" And Mom looks at me. The night the match struck was small at first. I had just come off a double, grease still perfuming my hair no matter how long I stood under the hot water. We were finishing pot roast because it's cheap and heavy, and it says celebration if you set the table right. Dad had washed 2 wine glasses and left the water running on a third, the faucet hissing as if it couldn't stand silence either. Mom dabbed gravy with a finger, tasted, nodded to herself like she'd made it. Your sister's 21st is next week, she said, which I already knew because Jessica had announced it 3 times on social media with a countdown and a collage of photos where she looks like an idea of a girl you root for. Jessica twirled her hair and smiled into her phone. We're going to do it here, Mom continued, brightening the word we as if it included me. Only 25 people. Only, I said, because sarcasm is cheaper than therapy. You should be ready, Sabine, Mom sang, like a reminder to pick up milk. You'll need to plan the menu, cook the food, set everything, clean before and after, and be warm with everyone. Big day. Dad grunted agreement without lifting his eyes. He saves his voice for phrases like, and that's final. I looked at my hands, the knife callus on my index finger, the tiny burn that healed in the exact shape of the sauté pan's handle. It's my only day off next week. Jessica's head snapped up. Wow, selfish much? I work 12 hours a day, I said, low, because loud never lands where you intend in this house. You could book a restaurant if you want a big thing. Mom's laugh was light and cruel at once. We don't have money for a restaurant, unless you talk to your boss and arrange it. My boss won't comp you 25 plates, I said. He won't comp 1. Mom's mouth tightened. Then either you find the money for a restaurant or you do it here. Simple. Something in me, small, stubborn, long ignored, stood up inside my chest. Years of nodding, stacked like plates, started to clatter. I thought of the envelopes I handed over, the transfers set on autopilot, the way Dad announced Jessica's grades at Easter like a State of the Union while I refilled water. I thought of the restaurant's back alley at midnight, of salt on my skin, of how I had not chosen a life so much as bartered it.
No, I said.
Silence can be slippery. This one had rocks in it. Dad put down his fork. Jessica barked a laugh that sounded like a dare. Mom's eyes went flat. You'll do what we're telling you to do, Dad said, like a construction foreman calling a break. If Jessica wants a nice birthday, I said, then she can have it at a place where strangers get paid to make it nice. Mom's face brightened with false discovery. You see? She wants it at your restaurant. Solve it. I won't, I said. And I'm not cooking a banquet on my day off. Jessica's cheeks flushed high. You're trying to ruin my birthday. I'm trying to live one day like I don't owe it to everyone. She stood so fast her chair screeched. You don't even like people. No one's asking you to smile. That's the problem, I said. Someone always is. Dad's voice went colder. Enough. You'll do your part. I could have argued about parts and wholes, about who keeps what ledger, about how much of yourself you can tithe before you're a ghost. But ghosts don't win in kitchens or families. They only haunt. I picked up my plate, carried it to the sink, and rinsed it until the water ran clear. Upstairs, my room had the stale sweetness of a life on pause. Old trophies that didn't fit who I am, a twin bed that made me sleep curled, a dresser that sighed when I opened it. I shut the door, locked it, and rested my head against the wood until the pulse in my temples slowed. Then I did math. Rough numbers, worst case, 2 years of near total pay turned over since Jessica started school, plus 4 more years of helping with the mortgage, plus nights I covered just for this month. I tried not to translate it into apartments I didn't rent, classes I didn't take, shoes I didn't buy. The total felt like a language I'd never been taught. I only knew it when other people spoke it fluently around me. I thought of Sarah from the floor at Romano's, waitress, hurricane laugh, the only person who says my name like it might be more than a syllable. A few weeks back, she'd mentioned her roommate was moving out. Back then, I said I couldn't think of anyone. Tonight, I could. My hands were steady when I called. She answered on the second ring. Sabine, you okay? Define okay. I told her about the party, the assignment of cheerfulness as unpaid labor, the way my father's voice still made me 12. I didn't have to explain the rest. She'd watched me show up for everyone but myself for years. Enough, she said. You're moving in with me. Do you mean it? I meant it when I asked 2 weeks ago. I'll mean it tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll make coffee. I can come in the morning, I said. I have the day off. Bring the stuff that's you, she said gently. Leave the stuff that tells you who to be. We worked out details that felt almost embarrassingly simple after years of complicated generosity. Split rent, 2 bedrooms, 15 minutes from the restaurant. When we hung up, the quiet in my room changed shape. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was a corridor. I found 3 cardboard boxes in the basement, the ones we save for Christmas ornaments and moving people we never become. Back in my room, I folded clothes I barely notice when I wear them, tucked a few books whose spines have held me together, slipped photos into a bag, and left the frames. I kept moving because the alternative was thinking about my mother's face when I say I'm done. Near midnight, there was a soft knock. Sabine, Mom said through the door, voice dipped in sugar. Can we talk? I'm tired, I said. Tomorrow? You need to stop acting like a child, she said, and I could hear the smile leave her mouth. We have to plan the best party for your sister. I'm going to sleep. Silence grew roots. We'll talk in the morning, she finally said. Good night. Her footsteps receded, then paused, like she was arranging herself into the version of mother she prefers to be in the hall mirror. I slid the boxes into the closet and sat on the floor with my back to the bed, breathing in the detergent and dust smell of the only room I've called mine for too long. I set an alarm for 6. I imagined the kitchen counter without my key on it, and then with it, a tiny rectangle of absence that would ring louder than any speech. Somewhere downstairs, the fridge motor kicked on, a faithful hum that has outlasted arguments and holidays and my entire early adulthood. I listened to it and pictured the side door at Romano's, the chalkboard with the staff meal, Sarah's chipped navy mug, the way the morning light threads through steam when we open for prep. For the first time in years, I could see a path that was not a loop. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, the house breathed. Old wood, ticking like it was counting. I counted with it until the numbers stopped meaning anything at all. Tomorrow was a word I'd use to delay my life. In 6 hours, it would mean something else. The alarm pierced the dark at 6. I was already half awake, staring at the ceiling where the plaster cracks fanned out like rivers on a map, each one leading somewhere I'd never gone. My body felt heavy with years, though I was only 25. For a moment, I almost convinced myself to stay. To roll over, let the morning blur into chores, shift, dinner, more obligations, familiar misery, at least. But the boxes in the closet glared at me, undeniable proof that a decision had already been made. I moved quietly, every creak in the floorboard sounding like betrayal. I dressed in jeans and a plain black tee, the sort of clothes no one would notice missing. The house was hushed, the kind of silence that comes only before dawn, when even resentment sleeps. I carried one box at a time down the stairs, pausing every few steps to listen. No voices, just the clock ticking like an accomplice. In the kitchen, I placed my key on the counter, such a small gesture, yet it felt louder than a slammed door. My hands trembled as I let it go, like I was handing back not just access to a house, but decades of expectation. I whispered, "Goodbye," though no one heard it, or maybe the walls did. Outside, the air was sharp with morning chill, the kind that wakes you faster than coffee. Birds chirped as if they had no stake in family politics. No memory of birthdays turned battlefields. I slid the boxes into the trunk of my dented car, every thud echoing like a drumbeat toward freedom. By the time I turned the ignition, my pulse was racing, not from fear exactly, but from the jolt of finally choosing myself. The drive was short, but unreal. Streets I'd traveled for years looked different, like movie sets dismantled overnight. My childhood park, where Jessica once pushed me off the swings and Mom told me to be the bigger sister. The corner store where I bought milk on credit, promising the owner Mom would pay him Friday. Each landmark felt like a ghost waving goodbye, not with malice, but with relief. 15 minutes later, Sarah was waiting outside her apartment building, clutching 2 steaming cups of coffee. Her hair was pulled up messily, a pencil stuck through the bun like a flag. She grinned when she saw me. "You did it," she said, no hesitation in her voice. I climbed out, stiff with nerves. "I think so." "No," she said firmly, pressing a cup into my hand. "You did. That's what matters." Inside, her apartment smelled of coffee grounds and lavender detergent, lived in without being suffocating. The living room had mismatched furniture, a bookshelf sagging with paperbacks, a plant so tall it brushed the ceiling. Compared to the stale order of my parents' house, this felt like breathing air that hadn't been filtered through judgment. We carried the boxes upstairs together, laughing awkwardly when one split open and spilled clothes across the hall. "These jeans look older than me," Sarah teased, holding up a pair with thinning knees. "They probably are," I admitted, cheeks warming. Her smile softened. "We'll fix that. You deserve things that are just yours." In my new room, sunlight slipped through blinds, illuminating blank walls that waited for my fingerprints. I set my books on the dresser and stacked folded shirts in drawers. Simple acts, but they hummed with meaning, arranging a life that belonged only to me. When Sarah asked how it felt, I said the first word that came to mind. Scary. Then, after a beat, good, really good. We ordered sushi to celebrate, sitting cross-legged on the floor with cartons spread between us. The rice stuck to my fingers, but I didn't care. For once, the food wasn't my responsibility. It was just fuel, pleasure, proof that small choices could taste like liberation. Sarah clinked her beer can against mine. "To freedom," she toasted. I laughed, though part of me wanted to cry. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone began to vibrate violently against the dresser. Mom, then Dad, then Jessica. Again and again, the screen lit up like a siren. I let each call roll to voicemail, fingers clenched around the can until it dented. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Let them sweat," she said calmly. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. After an hour, I checked the messages. The first was my mother's voice, trembling with confusion. "Sabine, your room is empty. Where are you? Why aren't you answering?" The next, my father's. "Come home now. We need to talk about Jessica's party." And Jessica, her voice sharp with wounded entitlement. "I can't believe you're doing this to me. My birthday is in 5 days. Do you even care?" I showed the recordings to Sarah. She scoffed. "Notice what's missing?" "What?" "No one asked if you're safe, or happy, or even alive. They're worried about the party, not you." Her words landed like a stone in my chest. She was right. Even in their panic, their focus was themselves. I deleted none of the messages, but saved them as evidence. For myself, not for court. Proof that leaving wasn't cruelty, it was survival. That night, exhaustion tugged at me, but sleep refused. The hum of Sarah's fridge sounded different from the one at home, less judgmental somehow. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if Jessica was storming around the house, if Dad was pacing, if Mom was crying into her hands. A sliver of guilt tried to burrow in. What kind of daughter walks out? But another voice, quieter and steadier, countered, what kind of family drives her too? The next morning at Romano's, I was chopping onions when Mr. Romano himself walked in. He rarely entered the prep line, but today his eyes lingered on me. You look different, kid, he said. Different how? Like you're carrying less weight, or maybe hiding it better. He gave a faint smile, then moved on. But the comment settled under my skin. He noticed. Maybe others would too. By evening, the calls had slowed, but the texts kept coming. Come home. We can talk. We'll work something out. Jessica needs you. Sarah glanced at my phone and shook her head. They're rewriting the story already. Don't let them. I silenced the notifications. The absence of buzzing was disorienting, like standing in a room where a loud clock suddenly stops. At first, the quiet felt wrong. Then it felt necessary. Over the next few days, I found myself relearning basics. What to cook when I wasn't feeding four, what music I liked without Jessica's commentary, how it felt to shower without someone banging on the door about hot water. Freedom was clumsy at first, but it was mine. Still, dread curled in my stomach each time I pulled into Romano's lot. I knew it was only a matter of time before they showed up there. My parents had always known where to find me. The thought of them walking into the restaurant, confronting me in front of coworkers, made my hands sweat. I rehearsed lines in my head. I don't live there anymore. I'm not paying anymore. Stop following me. The words felt sharp but necessary, like knives honed for the first time. On the fourth day, Sarah found me staring blankly at the wall. You're waiting for the storm, she said. I nodded. Let it come, she told me. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone this time. Her certainty was a lifeline. I clung to it, even as the shadows of old obligations stretched long behind me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like just a paycheck in human form. I felt like a person, one about to be tested again, but at least standing on her own feet. 4 days after I moved out, the storm arrived. I was peeling carrots in the prep station when Marco, one of the line cooks, poked his head in. Sabine, some people are out front asking for you. They look intense. His eyes flicked nervously toward the dining room. My stomach dropped. Of course they'd find me here. Romano's wasn't just my workplace. It was practically my second address. My parents knew that. They'd always known. I wiped my hands on my apron, heart hammering. Who is it? Older couple, Marco said carefully. Kind of the same eyes as you. And a girl who looks like she runs the world? I exhaled. Yeah, that's them. Marco's mouth twisted in sympathy. Mr. Romano said he'll handle it if you need him. I nodded, throat dry. There was no avoiding this. Better to face it on my turf, where witnesses could keep things from spiraling. The dining room smelled of garlic and wine, laughter floating around polished tables. And in the corner, there they were. My father's jaw was tight, his work shirt still smudged with dust, Mom's lips pressed thin, eyes darting around like she hated being here but hated me more. Jessica sat with perfect posture, arms crossed, her diamond-studded phone lying, screen up like a weapon. When I approached, Mom's face flickered between relief and fury. Sabine, she hissed, standing halfway. We need to talk. Now. Mr. Romano appeared like a shadow at my shoulder. Take them into my office, he murmured, voice firm. Privacy is safer. His office smelled of ink and leather, the blinds drawn against the sunlight. I sat behind the desk, not to claim power, but because I needed something solid at my back. My parents clustered opposite, Jessica perched like a queen in exile. What do you think you're doing? Mom snapped immediately. Jessica's party is in 3 days, and you disappear? Your room empty, no note, nothing. I moved out, I said simply. My father frowned, like I'd spoken another language. You what? I don't live there anymore. I have my own place now. Silence crashed down, heavy and wet. Jessica was the first to fill it, her laugh brittle. Oh, please, you? On your own? Don't be ridiculous. I looked her in the eye. I'm not ridiculous. I'm done being your servant. Mom's face reddened. Don't talk like that. We depend on your help. The mortgage, Jessica's tuition. How do you think this family survives? The words snapped something in me. You mean, how do you survive on my back? Do you realize I've given you more than $50,000 in the last 2 years? That's my education, my apartment, my life. Gone. Dad slammed his palm on the table. Don't throw numbers at us. Families don't keep score. Families don't bleed one person dry, I shot back. My voice shook, but not from fear, from release. I work 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and you still call me selfish when I say I won't spend my one day off cooking for 25 drunk college kids. Jessica's eyes narrowed. You don't love me. You never have. I almost laughed. Love isn't measured in casseroles and tuition bills, Jess. If it were, you'd be drowning in it. Mom pressed her hand to her chest as if I'd struck her. You can't do this. We need that money. Jessica's future depends on it. No, I said firmly. Jessica's future depends on Jessica. I'm not paying another dime. Not for tuition. Not for the mortgage. Not for anything. Her eyes widened, horror mingling with disbelief. Dad leaned forward, voice low and sharp. You'll regret this. Blood is blood. And freedom is freedom, I whispered. The door creaked open. Mr. Romano stepped inside, eyes scanning the tense tableau. Everything all right here? Mom straightened. This is a family matter. This is my office, Mr. Romano corrected smoothly, and Sabine is my employee. If she says you're harassing her, you leave. She's abandoning us, Mom sputtered. Turning her back on her own blood. Romano's gaze shifted to me. You want them to stay? I shook my head. My voice barely rose above a whisper, but it carried. I want them gone. He nodded once. Then it's done. He gestured, and two of the busboys, both built like linebackers, appeared at the door. Escort these folks out, please. Chaos flickered across my family's faces. Dad muttered curses. Mom hissed promises of regret. Jessica's glare burned holes through me. But they went. The office fell quiet again, except for the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen beyond. Romano sat on the edge of the desk, studying me. You all right, kid? I swallowed hard. I think so. You stood your ground. That's not easy. Tears pricked my eyes. It didn't feel easy. Doesn't matter how it feels. What matters is you did it. Don't let people walk all over you, even if they share your last name. I nodded, throat tight. He patted the desk once and left me to collect myself. That night, back at Sarah's, I opened my laptop with trembling hands. First, I canceled the automatic transfers that funneled half my paycheck into my parents' account. Each click was a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Then I called Jessica's university financial office. My voice was steady as I explained that I would no longer be responsible for tuition payments. They would need to contact my parents directly. The administrator hesitated. Are you sure? You've been the guarantor. I'm sure, I said. When I hung up, silence filled the room. Not the oppressive silence of my old house, but the clean kind, like a freshly wiped counter. Still, guilt wormed at me. I imagined Jessica withdrawing from classes, Dad picking up late shifts, Mom crying in the grocery store stockroom. For a heartbeat, I almost caved. Sarah noticed my expression and set down her book. What? They're going to struggle, I admitted. Maybe I should... No, she cut in. Struggle teaches responsibility. You've carried them long enough. This isn't cruelty, it's balance. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. Another part still pictured my mother's hand clutching her chest, whispering, You can't do this to us. That night, sleep was elusive. My dreams were tangled. Jessica shouting that I'd ruined her life, Dad's fist pounding the table, Mom's eyes hollow with betrayal. But in the morning, I woke in my own bed, in my own room, sunlight spilling across my own blanket. The nightmares belonged to yesterday. Today was mine. I knew the battle wasn't over. My parents had allies, relatives, neighbors, even family friends who'd been fed their version of the story. The war for my reputation was only beginning. But for once, I wasn't bracing to lose. The first shot arrived 2 days later, wrapped in concern and tied with a bow of urgency. Aunt Linda called while I was trimming artichokes, her contact name flashing with a childhood photo where she's hugging me on a beach I barely remember. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity won by an inch. Sabine, she said, voice pitched low, compassionate. Sweetheart, can we meet? Today, if possible. Your mother is very worried. The knife paused mid-slice. I'm at work. I can meet you after. There's a coffee shop on 10th. 4 o'clock? Okay, I said, though I wasn't sure why. Sarah glanced over, eyebrows raised, and I mouthed, Aunt. She squeezed my elbow like a silent seatbelt. The coffee shop smelled like baked sugar and burnt espresso. Linda was already there, tucked at a corner table, latte in front of her, lips pressed around concern as though she'd rehearsed. She stood to hug me, lingering a moment longer than necessary, like she could transfer me back to the role I'd abandoned. "There you are," she said, taking me in as if checking for visible damage. "How are you?" "Fine." I sat, wrapping my hands around a paper cup for something to hold. "You said Mom's worried." Linda sighed, the kind adults use when they're about to rewrite a story with softer pencils. "Your mother told me everything." She shook her head. "She said you left in the middle of, well, everything. She said you're angry and not thinking clearly." "Did she tell you why I left?" I asked, steady. "She said you felt overwhelmed by helping with Jessica's birthday and you needed space. But Sabine, families go through seasons. You don't run during one hard week." I took a sip to stall. The coffee was too hot. "That's not what happened." Linda tilted her head. "Then explain it to me." So I did. I laid out the ledger. Years of double shifts, my paycheck as lifeline and leash, the mortgage I didn't live under, the tuition for a degree I wouldn't earn, the way love in our house had to be paid for in installments. I told her about the party demand, the assignment of cheerfulness as unpaid labor. I almost brought up the number, 50,000, but stopped. People hear numbers and call you petty. Linda listened with that careful stillness that can be empathy or cross-examination. When I finished, she took a breath like she was about to swim. "Sabine," she said gently, "your parents raised you. They changed your diapers, bought your school supplies. Now they need help. This is how families are." "Families are not a single spine," I said softly. "Mine has been." She blinked, something flickering in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, quickly doused. "Your father picked up a second job this week," she said. "Your mother is working extra hours at the store. Jessica, well, she's taking a break from classes. They're struggling. They didn't expect you to cut them off like this." "I told Mom I wouldn't cook and clean a 25-person party on my day off," I said. "That's what started this, not some sudden cruelty." Linda's face tightened. "They said you abandoned them." "I moved out," I corrected, "and I stopped paying for their life." She sat back, disappointment arranged delicately on her features. "I can't believe how selfish you're being." There it was, the word that had followed me like a small gray cloud for years. I felt it land and evaporate. "I supported them for 6, I said. "It's not selfish to live my own 7th. Her jaw worked, as if she were chewing something tough. "If this is who you're going to be, Sabine, then I don't know that I want to be in the middle. I can't co-sign this behavior." "You don't have to be in the middle," I said, calm surprising me. "You can be on whatever side you want." She stood abruptly, chair legs scraping. "I hope you think about what you're doing," she said, voice sharpening. "Blood is blood." I watched her go, the bell over the door chiming like a small, polite alarm. I sat there for another minute, the coffee cooling, my hands no longer needing it for stability. Outside, the sky was the exact color of dishwater. I walked home through it, and for the first time since I left, I didn't look over my shoulder. The campaign unfolded like a press release. Text from a cousin who never writes. "Heard you're going through something, maybe apologize?" A DM from an old neighbor. "Your mom is heartbroken. Is there a way you can compromise?" An aunt by marriage I barely know tagged me in a Facebook post about honoring the sacrifices of parents. I resisted the urge to reply with a spreadsheet. Sarah found me doom scrolling on the couch, my thumb a metronome keeping time with other people's opinions. "Give me," she said, plucking the phone from my grip. "Have you eaten?" "I'm not hungry." She pointed at the kitchen. That wasn't the question. We boiled pasta and added garlic and olive oil and a fistful of parsley. Standing at the stove, watching the water churn, I realized I hadn't cooked for pleasure in months, maybe longer. Even food had been obligation. "They're telling everyone their version," I said, twirling noodles on a fork. "That I'm ungrateful, dramatic, unstable." Sarah slurped a noodle, unapologetic. "Let them. Anyone who matters will ask you directly. Anyone who doesn't was never on your side." "I met with Linda," I told her. "She called me selfish." Sarah's eyebrows climbed. "The relative who once borrowed your mother's spare room for 8 months? That one?" I laughed despite myself. "Same." "She likes stories with simple heroes," Sarah said. "You complicated them." The days stretched into a rhythm more like life than triage. I went to work. I came home. I slept without hearing anyone else's footsteps. Mr. Romano started handing me tasks with hidden weight, a vendor call here, a menu tweak there. Nothing official, but I recognized trust when I tasted it. One afternoon, he caught me at the host stand, reviewing prep lists. "You ever think about management?" he asked casually. "Sometimes," I admitted. Then I remember I'm always exhausted. "You look less exhausted lately." He tapped the papers. "Keep showing me this version of you." I tucked the comment somewhere private. Later, I took it out and turned it over like a coin. Silence fell from my family like snow at first. Gentle, blanketing, almost pretty. Then it crusted. 2 whole days without a single message felt like standing in an empty house, echoes where voices used to be. The quiet should have soothed me. Instead, it made me brace for the next angle of attack. At the end of the week, it came from Jessica. A text slipped through, probably from a new number. "We need to talk." No emojis, no accusations. Just 4 words that sounded, for once, like a person and not a performance. I stared at it so long the screen dimmed. I tried to imagine her without the chorus. No mom prompting, no dad glowering. Just my sister, 20 and flailing, expensive freedom, suddenly repossessed. When I finally typed back, the words surprised me. "Okay. Not tonight. Soon. Neutral place." Her reply was almost immediate. "Fine," I told Sarah, who nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "Just remember, empathy isn't amnesia." That night, sleep came easily and brought a dream. I'm in Romano's dining room after hours. Chairs on tables, the floor newly mopped. I'm setting a single place at a corner table, while outside a crowd gathers with hand-painted signs. Some say traitor, some say finally. I wake up before anyone comes in. The table remains set. It feels like a future scene I'll have to walk through. Sunday, I didn't work. I did laundry at a pace that wasn't frantic, folded while a cheesy cooking show played on low. I made a grocery list for the week and only wrote things I wanted. I even opened my laptop and clicked through a few online culinary classes, staring at the enroll button like it was a window latch. I didn't press it, not yet, but I left the tab open, a small rebellion against closing everything I can't afford. By late afternoon, the quiet had turned companionable. Then my phone buzzed with a number I recognized from childhood but hadn't saved. Our neighbor, Mrs. Santos. "Mi niña," the text read in a mix of English and affection. "Your mama told me you left. I don't know what happened. I do know you are good. Come by for pasteles sometime." A relief I didn't expect loosened my shoulders. Not everyone had bought the press release. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Sarah. She replied with a heart and a frying pan emoji. "You're not alone," she said when I looked up. "They just never wanted you to know it." In bed, I reread Jessica's fine until it looked like a different language. I thought about what I would ask her if we met. What's it like to be the center of a family and still feel precarious? What did our parents promise you that I can't deliver anymore? What did they promise me that I never asked for? Before I fell asleep, I decided 2 things. First, the next call would be mine to make, and I would set the terms. Second, I would stop waiting for permission to build a life that didn't require apology. The PR campaign could keep printing. I would not contribute copy. On Monday morning, as I tied on my apron, the dining room lights blinked on, and the room warmed from gold to day. I caught my reflection in the pass, eyes clear, mouth set. If the next battle staged itself in this room again, I'd be ready, with witnesses, with words, with boundaries that now felt less like walls and more like doors I could close. I stepped onto the line. The tickets would come. So would the people who believed their version of me more than mine. But for the first time, I felt a strange, resilient calm settle in my bones. Let them talk. I had work to do. And soon, a meeting to plan. 2 weeks passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Romano's smelled the same. Garlic, smoke, sweat. But the weight in my chest was lighter. Without funneling paychecks into someone else's life, I worked fewer doubles, took actual breaks, even learned the name of the new dishwasher. Freedom didn't arrive in a thunderclap. It arrived in small mercies. Clean socks folded without rushing, meals eaten sitting down, evenings with Sarah watching movies neither of us finished because we talked over them. And yet the silence from home wasn't really silence. It was like standing at the edge of a frozen lake, knowing cracked spiderweb beneath the surface. Guilt prowled me in the grocery aisle. My father probably bent over a second job, my mother scanning barcodes until her wrists ached, Jessica shelving sweaters instead of studying. I could picture each one so clearly, it almost felt like betrayal not to rush in and fix it. Sarah caught me staring at my phone one night, screen dark. Still waiting for them to reach out? They already did, I admitted. Cousins, neighbors, even Linda. It's like they built a choir. Everyone's singing the same hymn. Come back, you're selfish. And? I twisted the hem of my sleeve. Part of me wants to answer. Sabine. She leaned forward. Every time you worked yourself sick, did anyone text, "Are you okay?" Did anyone drive here to make sure you ate? No. Then don't confuse absence for love now. Her certainty steadied me. Still, the cracks under that frozen lake widened when Jessica finally reached out again. It was past midnight. The restaurant had closed hours ago, but I lay awake, scrolling through nothing. Her message appeared suddenly. I didn't ask for this either. I stared until the words blurred. This meant the jobs, the tuition cut, the collapse. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally. Then what did you ask for? 3 dots blinked. A normal 21st. Friends, music. Not to be the reason our family exploded. I swallowed hard. My sister, the sun around which my parents revolved, sounded smaller than I'd ever heard her. Not cruel, not entitled, just scared. It wasn't your fault, I wrote. They built everything on me. It was always going to crack. No reply came that night, but I felt something loosen. A rope tugged on both ends, finally slack. At Romano's, Mr. Romano began handing me bigger tasks. Take inventory this week, he said, or draft tomorrow's specials. Subtle tests, little nods toward the word promotion. I worked with a steadier back, but the guilt still clung like grease on an apron. Could I grow here while my family shrank without me? One afternoon, my cousin Mark came by the restaurant for lunch. He waved me over, conspiratorial. I heard what you did, he said, biting into a sandwich. I braced. And? He grinned. About time. They were using you like an ATM with legs. Don't feel guilty. His words landed like a rare kind of permission. Not everyone bought the story my parents sold. Not everyone thought selfishness and survival were the same. That night, Sarah poured us wine and asked, if guilt wasn't in the room, what would you do with your life? The question startled me. I thought of the culinary classes I'd left in an open tab, of the dream I once buried so deep I almost forgot it, owning a small cafe, sunlight streaming in, customers who knew my name because I wanted them to. I'd learn, I said slowly, not just cook to survive, but cook to create, and maybe rest. Sarah raised her glass. Then that's where we start. But guilt is stubborn. Later, lying in bed, I replayed Jessica's message. Her words weren't an apology, but they weren't an attack either. They were a crack in the armor. I wondered if she felt the same gnawing hunger for peace. The next day, another text from her appeared. Meet? Just us. I typed, neutral place, your call. Her reply was fast. Tomorrow. Library Cafe, 3. I exhaled, heart pounding. This was it. The first real confrontation without our parents as shields. I didn't know if we'd argue or cry, if she'd beg or accuse. But I knew I had to go. As I closed my phone, a thought flickered. Dangerous, but undeniable. Maybe this wasn't just about survival anymore. Maybe it was about rebuilding something new. A sisterhood not scripted by our parents, but negotiated between us. I wasn't sure if she wanted that. I wasn't even sure if I did. But tomorrow, I would find out. The library cafe smelled like dust and burnt espresso, a combination that felt appropriate for a meeting that might collapse into ashes. I arrived 10 minutes early, nerves buzzing under my skin. My palms left damp crescents on the paper cup as I waited. Every tick of the clock a reminder that I could still walk away. Jessica walked in right at 3. No entourage this time. No parents orbiting like guard dogs. Just her, in jeans and a hoodie that swallowed her frame. She looked younger than 20, younger than the version of her who tossed her hair like a crown. When her eyes found mine, I braced for fire. What I saw instead was hesitation. She slid into the chair across from me, arms folded tight. Thanks for coming. I nodded. You asked. For a moment, we just listened to the hum of the espresso machine. Then she blurted, You didn't have to blow everything up. I held her gaze. I didn't blow it up. It was already cracking. I just stopped patching it. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You could have told me. Instead, I come home and your room's empty, Mom crying like someone died. Someone did, I said quietly. The version of me who lived only for you. Jessica flinched. For a heartbeat, I thought she might walk out. Instead, she leaned back, eyes darting toward the window. Do you know what it's like to have everyone expect greatness from you? Every grade, every choice, measured against sacrifices I never asked for? Her words knocked the air out of me. I had always seen her as the golden child, basking in spotlight, but I hadn't considered the heat of it. I know what it's like to be told my life doesn't matter, I said. That my job is to fund yours. You got pressure, I got erasure. We sat in that silence, both versions of suffering laid bare on the table between us. Finally, she whispered, I didn't ask them to make you pay my tuition. No, I agreed, but you didn't say no either. Her eyes filled but didn't spill. I thought if I kept succeeding, it would all be worth it, that you'd be proud, that they'd stop comparing. She laughed bitterly, but then the money stopped, and suddenly I'm the disappointment too. I leaned forward, voice steady. That's why I left, not to punish you, to make them carry their own weight, to make you carry yours. You want a future? You earn it, like I had to. Jessica studied me, her face flickering between anger and something softer. So what now? You never talk to us again? I'm not saying never, I said. I'm saying boundaries, terms. I don't pay your bills. I don't play maid. If we're sisters, then it's because we choose to be, not because I bankroll you. Her jaw tightened. And Mom and Dad? They'll figure it out. They already are. They're working more. It's hard, but it's theirs, not mine. For the first time, Jessica didn't argue. She picked at the cardboard sleeve of her cup. It sucks, she admitted, having less, watching everyone else's lives keep moving while mine stalls. I thought of the nights I'd stood at the sink, hands raw from dishes, while her laughter echoed upstairs. Yeah, I said softly, it does. We sat in uneasy truce, two soldiers after a ceasefire. Then Jessica's voice dropped to almost nothing. I'm sorry. It wasn't everything. It wasn't enough to erase years, but it was something. I'm sorry too, I said, for not telling you sooner, for just carrying it. Her eyes met mine, vulnerable, unguarded. For the first time in years, I saw my sister, not my burden. We left without hugging, but she didn't storm off either. That was progress. That night, Sarah listened as I recounted every word. So you laid down the law, she said. Terms and conditions, I corrected. And she accepted? Halfway. Sarah smirked. Halfway is a start. Even contracts have amendments. Lying in bed later, I replayed Jessica's apology. Small, imperfect, but real. Maybe we weren't enemies. Maybe we were just two girls caught in a house that used us differently, but broke us the same. For the first time since leaving, I didn't dream of my parents' faces. I dreamed of a kitchen filled with sunlight, my sister sitting at the counter, both of us cooking something simple, not because anyone demanded it, but because we wanted to. Months passed, and the world didn't end. The house on Oak Street still stood, though its walls were held up by my parents' own hands now, not mine. From what filtered through the grapevine, Dad worked late shifts, hauling freight. Mom picked up extra hours at the grocery store, and Jessica folded sweaters under fluorescent lights at a retail shop. They were surviving, not thriving, but for the first time, it wasn't at my expense. I too was surviving, but it felt different. My money stayed mine. Rent split evenly with Sarah, groceries bought without dread, and sometimes, luxury of luxuries, takeout just because we felt like it. The weight on my shoulders had shifted, replaced by something lighter, something almost like possibility. Romano noticed. He called me into his office one evening after the dinner rush, where the air smelled of wine and simmering sauces. You've been stepping up, he said, tapping a pencil against a menu draft. Vendors, specials, managing the line when I'm not around. You ever think about sous chef? My throat tightened. Sometimes, but... No buts, he cut in. You're ready. Next quarter, I'll make it official. The words sank in slowly like heat through stone. Promotion, pay raise, a title that wasn't just worker bee. My life, finally moving forward. When I told Sarah, she cheered so loudly the neighbors banged on the wall. She popped open a cheap bottle of champagne and poured it into mismatched mugs. To freedom, with benefits, she toasted. I laughed, clinking mine against hers. And no double shifts unless I actually want them. Days slipped into a rhythm that felt almost ordinary. Work, home, evenings of rest. I bought new clothes that actually fit, shoes without holes, a secondhand camera, just because I'd always wanted one. I even booked a weekend trip to the coast with Sarah, the first real vacation I'd allowed myself in over 5 years. The idea of sand under my feet without guilt felt like stepping into another universe. But family shadows don't vanish. They linger, long and stubborn. One afternoon, Jessica showed up at Romano's. Not with fury this time, but with caution. She looked older somehow, her hair pulled back, uniform polo rumpled from retail shifts. "Got a minute?" she asked. I nodded, leading her to the alley behind the restaurant, where deliveries usually came in. The air smelled of garlic and asphalt. She stuffed her hands into her pockets. I started saving. Mom and Dad are, well, they're figuring it out. I hate it, but I'm learning too. I studied her face, searching for resentment, but found only exhaustion. "That's good." She hesitated, then added, "I miss you." My chest tightened. I miss the version of us that wasn't about money. "Maybe we can find her again," she said softly. We stood there, not hugging, not fighting, just breathing the same air. A ceasefire stretched into something that looked like fragile peace. Later that week, I invited her to Sarah's apartment. Nothing dramatic, just dinner. I cooked pasta with roasted vegetables, a meal simple enough to feel casual, but deliberate enough to matter. When Jessica arrived, she looked around shyly, like stepping into a life she'd never imagined for me. "This is nice," she said. "It's mine," I replied, and the words felt like a benediction. We ate slowly, talking about nothing monumental, her coworkers, my new responsibilities, the trip I was planning. For once, there were no demands, no accusations, just sisters, sharing a meal. After she left, Sarah grinned at me. "See? Progress." I exhaled, smiling back. Not perfect, but progress. Weeks later, I drove past my parents' house on a whim. The curtains were drawn, the lawn slightly overgrown, but it was still standing. I didn't stop, didn't go in. I just watched for a moment, then drove on. The past would always be part of me, but it no longer owned me. Now, when I cook, it's not because I have to. It's because I choose to. I choose what to make, who to share it with, and when to stop. That choice is everything. For the first time in my adult life, I am not surviving for others. I am living for myself.